What's up, race fans? 'Tis I, Justin with NRN, the No Bull Racing Network. The checkered flag has fallen at California, and we have a brand new sheriff in town. And that new sheriff is Martin Truex Jr., putting a beating on the field, picking up his first win of 2018, and he becomes our third winner of the year. So we have a new winner. The last couple of weeks we had gotten used to seeing Kevin Harvick win, while Martin Truex Jr. is the new winner. And what a performance it was. And I tell you what, you've always got to follow your gut. You just do. If your instincts tell you something, I always say go with your instincts because, hey, you're probably right. And for some reason, I don't know why, just coming out of Phoenix, I told everyone, including, if you listen to me, you heard me talk about it. I talked about it on the recap last week, and I talked about it on the Ryerson's Racing Rant, talked about it with him. I said, hey, Toyota's going to win. I had it on my No Bull Racing Fantasy on NASCAR.com. I had Toyota winning the whole thing. I just felt that. I don't know why. Something said internally, the inside me said, Justin, Toyota's going to win. And Truex Jr. went down there and he was fast in practice. He got the pole. And dang, he won all three stages today. And won the race by 10 seconds at least. Martin Truex Jr. went across the start-finish line taking the checkered flag, and it took a few moments before Kyle Larson, who finished second, to get over there. And then sometime later that day, the rest of the top 10 came through. Truex killed them. But Kevin Harvick was the guy to watch. He was trying to make history going for 4 in a row, and he went out there, and he had a very fast car in practice. And he had a fast car at the start of the race. He was mounting a charge. I put on Twitter. We have a Twitter page, by the way. You can follow us, No Bull Racing Net, on Twitter. And I think I tweeted something like, here comes Harvick, because he was mounting a charge up through the field. And then I jinxed him, really, because as soon as I sent the tweet, he and Kyle Larson came together, and Kevin Harvick crashed his car. I could not believe it right there in stage 1. He didn't really do a whole lot of racing. I don't even think he put 40 laps on the car before he crashed. Harvick was just being way too aggressive out there. Kyle Larson was really strong, and it looked to me, they ran side by side. It was really good racing. They ran side by side for 2 to 3 laps. And you could just get the sense that Harvick really wanted to keep Larson behind him because he knew that Larson was a guy he was potentially going to have to beat that day. He didn't want to let him get in front of him and go. So he was racing way too hard, 40 laps in to a 200-lap race, and he winded up losing big. Larson had got him loose coming off of 2. Harvick seemed to get a little angry with the youngster, so he went low to maybe side draft him, maybe even give him a swipe on the door, and when he made contact with the 42, his car shot right for the wall, tore the whole front end up, tore the back end completely off. But I think that's what got him. We saw the reason why Harvick was winning all those races. They were doing it so calmly. Everything was just going their way. He was being patient. He was waiting for the right opportunities. He'd get the lead. He'd take off, not driving too hard. But today, I think he got a little antsy trying to get up front and win number 4. But tires was a big factor today. And that seems to be a trend for this entire season. I'm not sure what Goodyear's providing them or if it's just these track surfaces. There is no grip at California, much like Atlanta. But at Atlanta, every time those guys got a chance to come to pit road, they came to pit road and everyone took 4 tires. We saw the same thing today here at California. They had at one point a restart in stage 2. They ran 3 laps before the caution came out again. And only after running 3 laps, the entire field pitted for 4 tires. 3 laps. That's all they ran on those tires. And they tossed them quickly to put on 4 tires. And you were really quick on 4 tires. Joey Logano was the first car to short pit the segment. He comes in around lap 25 in stage 1, takes the 4 tires, and he actually made up ground on the leaders. When it cycled back around, he had gotten up to 3rd just doing that. But already in those 2 to 3 laps before everything cycled back around, he was already getting passed by those guys who had the fresh tires. Already after 3 laps of racing, Joey Logano's tires were starting to go away. Tires was a big thing today. But on pit road, speaking of Joey Logano, had the best pit stops of anyone. Every time the 22 came into the pits, those guys were on it, man. They would pick him up spots on pit road. Every time he came off pit road, he gained at least a spot or two. Those guys had the best pit stops. Funny enough, Martin Truex Jr., they had the worst pit stops of the day. They lost spots every time they came to pit road, but his car was just so dang fast. When they threw the green, he'd get the lead again, and he'd take off again. But I can't remember a time during the race when he came in the leader and left the leader on pit road. But I tell you what, the stops are getting better all around. The times are starting to come down. A fast time at Daytona on pit stops was about 16 to 17 seconds. Today, I was seeing 13, 14 second pit stops. They're getting the hang of this losing a man over the wall type thing, and they're getting used to the new rule changes, and the stops are starting to come down. These guys are good at what they do. Jimmy Johnson, though, had another solid race for Hendrick Motorsports. He got a top 10 finish tonight. And it's funny that is news. It's funny that I had to work that into the highlights, that I had to write in the highlights that Jimmy Johnson got a top 10 finish, as if that was big news. But it is big news. Because Jimmy Johnson has been struggling this year. He has not been the Jimmy Johnson, the 7-time champion that we are used to seeing. He didn't get off to a good start. It took him to Las Vegas to finally finish a race. He didn't finish any of the races at Daytona. And then he crashed in Atlanta, and he finally finished the race on the lead lap in Las Vegas. Third race of the year before he did that. Well, now he's got him a top 10 finish, and it looks like that team is maybe starting to show some success. They certainly didn't run that well throughout the majority of the race. You could tell that top 10 finish that Jimmy Johnson got was a hard-fought top 10 finish. It was something they definitely earned, but it didn't come easy for them. It's not like they had a 10th place car. He maybe took a 15th place car and made it a 10th place car. But Hendrick overall still struggled today, and it looks like they're not getting a handle on these brand new Chevy Camaros. But I tell you what, who is getting a handle on it is Kyle Larson. Another strong run today. Clearly the best of the Chevy teams is Chip Ganassi right now. But then again, it's not really just Chip Ganassi, is it? Because Kyle Larson is running in the top 5 every single race. But his teammate Jamie McMurray is not. But yeah, Kyle Larson's got the Chevys thing figured out right now. That team is going to get a win, and they are going to get a win soon. But let's take a look at the top 20 finishers of the Auto Club 400. Martin Truex Jr. sat on the pole. He won Stage 1. He won Stage 2. And he led 125 laps out of the 200 to win his first race of 2018, our defending champion. Finally starting to show some pace and looking like he's on championship form. Kyle Larson would finish second in his Chevy Camaro. As I talked earlier, they definitely have it figured out, and they are looking good. Kyle Busch would have another frustrating day. He would finish in third and still runner-up. He hasn't won a race in a while, but he keeps dancing all around it. They messed up on the handling at the end of the race, and that really cost him a lot of time. A pair of Penske's would be 4th and 5th. Brad Keselowski would finish 4th. He was the highest running of the Fords this afternoon. And Joey Logano would finish in 5th. Denny Hamlin would be 6th. Eric Jones with a really good run today, hanging around the top 10 all afternoon. He would finish 7th. Ryan Blaney tagged the wall during the race, but he rebounded to an 8th place finish. 9th would be Jimmy Johnson, the highest running of the Hendrick Motorsports cars, and 10th would be our Daytona 500 winner, Austin Dillon. Clint Bowyer would be 11th for Stewart-Haas Racing. He was actually the highest finishing Stewart-Haas Racing car, since Kevin Harvick had some woes early on in the race, so Clint Bowyer would finish 11th. His teammate Eric Almirola would finish in 12th. Alex Bowman in the 88 would finish in 13th for Hendrick Motorsports. Kurt Busch would finish in 14th, and the young rookie William Byron would finish 15th. and would even get to lead a lap. Chase Elliott did not have a very good afternoon. Didn't hear a whole lot about him. He would finish 16th. Jamie McMurray, Kyle Larson's Chip Ganassi teammate, would finish 17th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for Roush Racing would finish 18th. Paul Menard would finish 19th after having some trouble during the race. The car brought out a caution. And Darrell Wallace Jr., Bubba, would finish 20th for Petty's number 43. He would be the 20th place runner. That is the top 20 finishers of the Auto Club 400 from the California Speedway. But while NASCAR was in California, IMSA was putting on a heck of a show in Sebring. The 12 Hours of Sebring, one of the toughest race circuits in the world, simply because the place is so rough on a car and a driver. It's very bumpy. It's very old. It's part airfield and developed road course. And you have to keep the car going for 12 hours, which is difficult at a track like that. But it was a very exciting race throughout the 12 hours. And really, there wasn't a team that kind of dominated. If I have to say one team dominated, it was shared, man. It was really good racing. Especially between that Nissan DPI, the 22, and the 31 Whelen Cadillac. There was some good racing going on there between those two teams. The Cadillacs were suffering with engine overheating issues, though, throughout the week, throughout all the practice sessions. And it was the defending winners in the number 10 Cadillac that eventually had to change their motor because of the overheating issues. And then even during the race, the number 10 was suffering from running too hot. They came into the pits at one point, and water was just spewing out of that car. So you kind of felt that maybe any moment that car was gonna blow, but it held up. It held up through the race. But if you listen to the pit stop a week ago here on NRN, you know that I picked the number 22 Nissan to win the race overall in the prototype class. And that was because of their driver lineup. That was simply all I went with. I looked at their driver lineup and I said, that team. And that's because all three of their drivers were not only world-class racing drivers, but all three are former winners at Sebring. Pippo Durrani, Johannes van Overbeek, and Nicolas Lapierre. All three former winners, all three fantastic drivers, all three got the job done. And there's just no substitute for experience, am I right? Especially at a track that is tough as Sebring. But you know who just can't seem to catch a break? That's Team Penske. The number 7 looked like that car could be the race-winning car. I think all three of the drivers led laps. And the number 7 was out front for a good while. They led laps, they ran up front, they stayed out of trouble, didn't finish. Same thing happened during the Daytona 24. And then the number 6 Penske car got involved in an accident in turn 17. That ruined their race. That team has had cars that could win both of the races this season, but they have not been there at the end. So, Team Penske has to work on the endurance part of the endurance racing program. Also having trouble would be Corvette, and this was very surprising because Corvette has won Sebring 11 times in their manufacturer's racing history. And they were looking for their 4th win there in a row, but they too would suffer problems. Early on, the number 3 Corvette would go behind the wall, so it was up to the number 4, but they just never could seem to get the balance right. And I really expected to see a battle between the 4 GTs and the Corvette, just like we saw in Daytona. But in the end, what we got was a battle between Porsche and BMW. Who saw that coming? I mean, neither one of those teams were a factor at Daytona. As soon as the green flag fell at Daytona, the 4 GTs and the Corvette took off, and they followed one another for 24 straight hours. That did not happen at Sebring. But I tell you what, man, the BMW, they got to work since Daytona, because that M8 was quick all race long. They even started from the pole. But let's take a look at the results from the 12 hours of Sebring. Your podium finishers in your 3 classes. Finishing first overall, as you know, is the Tequila Patron ESM Nissan DPI, Pippo Durrani, Johannes van Overbeek, and Nicolas Lapierre. The drivers that I picked to win, they completed 344 laps to win the race in that number 22 Nissan prototype. Finishing in second would be the defending winners from last year's race, the number 10 Konica Cadillac. Ranger Van de Zandt, Jordan Taylor, and Ryan Hunter-Reay were the drivers in that car. And finishing third was the number 31 Whelen Engineering Racing, driven by Mike Conway, Eric Curran, and Felipe Nassa. And they put on a really good show. Had some really good racing with that number 22 with about 3 hours to go. That was some entertaining stuff. So that was your podium finishers in the prototype class. In GT Le Mans, it would be Nick Tandy, Frederick Makowicki, and Patrick Pilet. The Porsche 911 taking the win. So Porsche picks up their first win of the season. In fact, Porsche, I think, has the most manufacturer wins at Sebring, so they add another one to that list. Connor D. Felipe, Bill Oberlin, and Alexander Sims in the number 25 BMW, who started from the pole, would finish second. And then the other Porsche team, Lawrence Van Thor, Jinmara Brewery, and Earl Bamber, would finish in third. So that was your top three finishers in GT Le Mans. And just to throw this out there, if you're keeping score at home, the number 67 that won at Daytona, the 4GT, driven by Richard Westbrook, Scott Dixon, and Ryan Briscoe, would finish in fourth, so they would just miss the podium in GT Le Mans. In GTD, Madison Snow, Brian Sellers, and Corey Lewis for Paul Miller Racing in the Lamborghini, they pick up the win in the number 48. And those guys right there are probably going to be the point leaders eventually, because if you look at all the teams around them in the points, some of those teams aren't going to be running all the races, but the 48 will. So they right now, even though they're not scored as the championship leaders, they potentially could be your championship leaders elect eventually. That's in the number 48 Lamborghini. They took the win in GTD. Finishing second, Alessandro Balzan, Cooper McNeil, and Gunnar Giannetti in the Scuderia Corsa Ferrari. They would finish in second. And the defending winners in GTD from last year's race, in the number 33 Mercedes, would finish in third. And those are your podium finishers in the classes for Sebring. The next race will be in about 25 days from the street circuit in Long Beach, so that'll be fun to see. The IMSA WeatherTech Championship is some of the most exciting racing out there right now. I tell you what, sports car racing is really some good stuff to watch. So if you're not a big sports car racing fan, become one, because it is some really good stuff. And this season has been a lot of fun. That 12 hours of Sebring was a great race. NASCAR is going short track racing this coming weekend from the Martinsville Speedway, the STP 500. That is going to be fun. You know, short track racing is some of the best racing you'll watch, so don't miss that race. I'm not even going to make a prediction on that one right now, because I don't even know. I'll tell you this, I don't know if the Fords are going to do so well, because the Fords didn't do well in Phoenix. They seem to lack some mechanical grip. I don't know. I tell you what, short track racing though is going to be good. In fact, I think we're getting a double dose of short track racing. We've got Martinsville, then we're going to take a break for Easter, and then I think we go to Bristol. So some good racing on the way. But thanks for tuning in. I'm Justin with NRN, the No Bull Racing Network, and I'll see you next week. Take it easy, guys.